A garage, 2020. A man stands surrounded by half-finished projects. A guitar with dust on the strings. Bought 2 years ago, played for 3 months, abandoned. Woodworking tools, used twice, still in the box. A half-built app. Code written, never launched. Photography equipment, thousands of dollars worth, sitting unused. He looks at all of it, and he tells himself a story. I'm just a curious person. I'm a polymath. I'm building an M-shaped mind. I'm gathering skills for the future. But here's the truth. He's broke. Still living paycheck to paycheck. Still working a job he hates. Still dreaming about the life he wants, but never building it. Because while he was exploring, someone else picked one thing and went all in. And now that person is making $500,000 a year doing the one thing he tried for 3 months and quit. Here's what nobody tells you about curiosity. It's a gift when you're searching, and it's a curse when you're building. And if you don't know the difference, you're going to spend your whole life exploring and never arriving. Today, we're breaking down the exploration trap, why society lies to you about being a jack of all trades, and why the people who actually win pick one thing and ignore everything else. Let's start with the lie. There's a quote people love. Jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. And people use this quote to justify jumping between interests, to justify never committing, to justify staying scattered. But here's what they don't tell you. That quote is wrong. Let me show you why. Name one person who became a billionaire by being good at 5 things. One person who changed the world by spreading themselves thin. You can't, because they don't exist. Now name someone who became a billionaire by doing one thing obsessively. Bezos. Books then everything through Amazon. Musk. Electric cars and rockets. Zuckerberg. Social media. One thing, all in. For decades. That's the pattern. Every single time. So why does society sell you this lie about being well-rounded? Why do they tell you curiosity is your superpower? Because it keeps you busy. It keeps you distracted. It keeps you from becoming a threat. Think about it. If you're jumping between 5 different interests, you're not building anything that matters. You're not getting good enough at one thing to actually win. You're just busy. And busy feels like progress. But it's not. Here's the truth. There are 2 phases of life, exploration and exploitation. Exploration is when you're young, under 25. You don't know what you're good at yet, so you try things, you taste, you sample. That's fine, that's necessary. But here's the trap. Most people never leave exploration. They stay there forever. They're 35 years old, still exploring, still trying new things, still telling themselves they're building a diverse skill set. But they're not. They're just avoiding commitment. Because commitment is scary. Commitment means picking one thing and betting everything on it. And if it doesn't work, you can't blame the thing. You have to blame yourself. So instead, you keep exploring. You keep one foot out the door. You keep telling yourself you're just gathering tools. But here's what's really happening. You're running from the hard work. Let me show you what exploration actually looks like versus what real building looks like. Exploration. You try guitar for 3 months. You get okay at it. You lose interest. You move on. Building. You play guitar every day for 10 years. You get so good that people pay you to teach them, or perform, or produce music. Exploration. You learn to code for 6 months. You build a few small projects. You get bored. You try something else. Building. You code every day for 10 years. You get so good that companies pay you $300,000 a year. Or you build a product that makes millions. See the difference. Exploration is shallow. Building is deep. And deep is where the money is. Deep is where the respect is. Deep is where the freedom is. You can't get deep if you keep jumping. Now here's what people will say. But I'm not a specialist. I'm a generalist. I connect ideas from different fields. Okay, let's test that. Name one idea you connected from 2 different fields that made you money. One insight that came from your diverse interests that changed your life. Can't think of one. Yeah, that's the problem. Because connection sounds smart, but execution is what matters. And you can't execute on 5 things at once. You can only execute on one. Here's the brutal truth. The world doesn't reward curiosity. It rewards results. Nobody cares that you know a little bit about coding and a little bit about design and a little bit about marketing. They care if you can build a product that works, or design something beautiful, or get customers. And you can't do any of those things at a high level if you're splitting your focus. In our video on leverage, we talked about how output equals volume times leverage. Go watch that if you haven't. It explains why doing more things doesn't mean getting more done. Here's the connection. When you spread yourself thin, you have zero leverage, because leverage comes from depth, from expertise, from being so good at one thing that you can charge 10 times more than everyone else. But if you're mediocre at 5 things, you can't charge more for anything. You're just average at everything, and average doesn't win. Now let's talk about what people call the M-shaped mind. Multiple pillars of expertise. Sounds great in theory, but here's the problem. You can't build multiple pillars at the same time, and most people who try to build them one after another never finish the first one. They spend 2 years on music, don't get good enough to make money, move on. They spend 2 years on coding, don't get good enough to make money, move on. They spend 2 years on business, don't get good enough to make money, move on. And now they're 30 years old with 6 half-built pillars and zero income. That's not an M-shaped mind. That's just distraction with better branding. Here's what actually works. Pick one pillar, build it all the way, make money from it, then maybe add another. But most people never get to then, because the first pillar takes 10 years to build right. And if you can't commit to 10 years on one thing, you're not building an M-shaped mind. You're just scared to focus. Now here's the part people don't want to hear. Your curiosity might be a coping mechanism. Let me explain. When you start something new, it's exciting, it's fresh, it's fun. You feel like you're making progress. But then it gets hard, boring, repetitive. You hit a plateau. That's when most people quit, and they tell themselves a story. I'm just exploring. I'm gathering skills. I'm a curious person. But really, they're just avoiding the hard part, because the hard part is where you actually get good. The hard part is where you build the skill that makes money. But the hard part is boring, so you jump to something new, something exciting, something easy again. And you repeat this pattern forever, always in the fun beginner phase, never in the painful expert phase. That's not curiosity, that's avoidance. Here's the test. Can you do the same thing every day for a year without getting bored? If no, you don't have a curiosity problem. You have a discipline problem. And discipline is what separates people who make money from people who stay broke. Now let's address the elephant in the room. What about people like Steve Jobs? He studied calligraphy and technology and design. Doesn't that prove the M-shaped mind works? No. Here's why. Steve Jobs didn't do all of those things at the same time. He did calligraphy in college. Then he went all in on technology for 40 years. The calligraphy was exploration. The technology was exploitation. And he only won because he committed to one thing for decades, not because he kept jumping between interests. Same with Elon Musk. People say he runs multiple companies. Tesla, SpaceX, Twitter. But here's what they don't see. Each of those companies has a CEO, real operators running the day-to-day. Musk isn't doing 5 things. He's doing one thing: vision and capital allocation. That's it. And he only got there by going all in on one company first. PayPal, then Zip2 before that. One thing, then another, sequentially, not simultaneously. That's the pattern. Always. So here's the rule. If you're under 25, explore. Try things. Figure out what you're good at. But once you find something that works, stop exploring. Go all in. Build that one thing for 10 years. Get so good that people beg to pay you. Make enough money that you have options. Then, if you still want to explore, fine. You've earned it. But most people never earn it, because they never stop exploring long enough to build anything real. Now let's talk about what focus actually looks like, because I think people misunderstand it. Focus doesn't mean you can't have hobbies. It doesn't mean you can't learn new things. It means you have one primary vehicle for making money, one business, one skill, one career, and everything else is secondary. You can play guitar on weekends. You can learn Japanese for fun. You can cook as a hobby, but your business is the thing that gets your best energy, your deepest focus. your most time. That's the difference. Hobbies are fine, but they're not your strategy. Your strategy is one thing, all in. Here's an example. Someone works as a software engineer. That's their primary skill. That's what pays the bills. On nights and weekends, they play music, they cook, they read philosophy. But they're not trying to monetize all of those things. They're not building 5 businesses. Music is for fun, cooking is for relaxation, philosophy is for thinking. Only coding is for money. That's focus with hobbies, and that works. What doesn't work is trying to turn every interest into a business, trying to monetize everything, trying to build 5 income streams at once. That's just distraction dressed up as ambition. Now here's the final truth. The people who tell you to explore forever are usually broke. Look at their bank account, look at their business, look at their results. They're not winning. They're just justifying why they haven't won yet. And they want you to join them because misery loves company. But the people who are actually winning, the ones making real money, building real businesses, creating real freedom, they all say the same thing. Pick one thing. Go all in. Ignore everything else. That's not a coincidence. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. Do you want to be interesting at parties? Or do you want to be rich? Because you can't be both. Not at the same time. Interesting people know a little about everything. Rich people know everything about one thing. Pick one. Now here's the action plan. Step 1. If you're under 25 and still exploring, that's fine. Keep going. But set a deadline. By 25, pick one thing. Step 2. If you're over 25 and still exploring, stop. Right now. Look at everything you're doing. Pick the one thing that has the most potential. Cut everything else. Step 3. Commit to that one thing for 10 years. Not 10 months, not 10 weeks, 10 years. Step 4. When you want to jump to something new, and you will, remind yourself, this is just boredom. This is just the hard part. Push through. Step 5. Build the skill so deep that people have no choice but to pay you. Get so good that you're in the top 1%. Step 6. Make enough money that you have options. Then, if you still want to explore, go ahead. But don't explore before you win, because exploring before winning is just procrastinating with better branding. Here's the final truth. Your scattered interests aren't a superpower. They're a distraction. And every day you spend exploring is a day someone else is building. They're getting better. You're getting broader. And in 10 years, they'll be making millions doing one thing, and you'll still be exploring, still gathering tools, still telling yourself you're building an M-shaped mind. But you won't be rich. You won't be free. You won't have options. You'll just have a garage full of half-finished projects and a story about why it didn't work out. So stop exploring. Start building. Pick one thing. Go all in. Because the world doesn't reward curiosity. It rewards commitment. And if you can't commit to one thing for 10 years, you don't deserve to win.